Level 1. The call. Your phone rings at 3:47 a.m. You answer because you always answer. The voice on the other end doesn't introduce itself. It says one word, confirmed. Then it gives you an address, a floor number, and a 4-digit entry code that will expire in 11 minutes. You write nothing down. You're already moving. You arrive to find a man sitting behind a desk with no computer on it. He slides a single sheet across the surface. It's a non-disclosure agreement with a liquidated damages clause worth more than your net worth. You sign it. You don't read it. This is the moment you will later understand was the actual interview. Not what comes after, but the signing itself. They were watching how long you hesitated. Your title, for now, is Engagement Associate. Your function is to organize the preliminary documentation for a sovereign wealth fund restructuring across 3 jurisdictions. You don't fully understand the scope yet. That's intentional. The office smells like recycled air and fresh toner, clean in a way that feels engineered. You are handed a badge with no name on it, only a 6-digit alphanumeric code. You learn quickly that nobody here uses names. Invisible rule: never ask what you're not told. The question itself is the disqualification. Level 2. The room behind the room. At this level, you are assigned a secondary workstation, a terminal inside a Faraday-shielded room that blocks all wireless signal. Everything you produce here is watermarked with your code at the pixel level. But you learn what a clean exit actually means: the legal dissolution of an entity's beneficial ownership chain across no fewer than 4 holding layers, at least 2 of which must be domiciled in non-treaty jurisdictions. You run your first structure through a Cayman SPV into a Luxembourg SOPARFI, and the numbers clear without a single flag. You start to realize that the work isn't complicated, it's deliberate. The complexity is a design feature, not a flaw. The room hums at a frequency just below audible range. By the end of the week, you stop noticing it. That's when you know you belong here. Invisible rule: the structure is never wrong. You are wrong. Rebuild accordingly. Level 3. First contact. You meet the principal for the first time. He does not shake your hand. He reads a single figure from a document you prepared and asks one question. Who verified the counterparty compliance layer? You answer correctly. He leaves. That is the entire meeting. You are told afterward that this was exceptional access. You believe it. Your role expands to include what is internally called narrative management, the preparation of asset transfer documentation designed to align with regulatory optics without triggering beneficial ownership disclosures. You work alongside a former central bank attorney and a forensic accountant who speaks 4 languages and laughs at nothing. The coffee here is always exactly the right temperature. You will later realize that's because someone's job is to make sure it is. Invisible rule: proximity to the principal is currency. Spend it slowly. At level 4. The threshold. This is where it changes. You are asked to sign off on a restructuring that removes a minority shareholder from a clean energy vehicle before a regulatory reclassification locks the equity. The shareholder doesn't know. The timeline is 72 hours. You run the compliance screen, find one exposure, and bury it inside a legal opinion footnote. It clears. You feel nothing unusual. That is the detail worth noting. You feel nothing unusual. At this level, you are given a second phone. It has 3 contacts. You never call them. They call you. The air in the primary suite now carries a faint trace of cedar, someone's cologne, or perhaps an intentional environmental choice. Either way, it signals seniority. You begin wearing it yourself within a month. This is your invisible rule. The exposure you find and don't report becomes the leverage they hold over you forever. Level 5. Operational authority. You now manage a team of 4. None of them know each other's full scope. You run a parallel diligence protocol across their outputs, checking for inconsistency, information leakage, and loyalty signals. You produce a monthly deviation report submitted directly upward. You understand now that you were managed this way for your first 2 years. The realization doesn't bother you. It impresses you. Your compensation shifts from salary to a carried interest arrangement tied to net realization events, meaning you only earn fully when the exit completes. This aligns your incentives completely. It also means you cannot afford to let anything fail. Sleep becomes a resource you manage rather than a need you feel. Invisible rule: the team trusts you completely. That trust is your primary tool. Level 6. The quiet restructuring. At this level, you begin working on what the documentation calls a continuity architecture, a succession structure designed to ensure the principal's asset base survives regulatory regime changes, estate litigation, and geopolitical reclassification. It is, in plain language, a plan to make a fortune functionally immortal. You draft provisions across 7 jurisdictions. You engage a private treaty specialist in Liechtenstein and a parallel legal counsel in Singapore under a dual-opinion firewall. The documentation runs to 340 pages. You write 280 of them. You stop counting hours. The office has no exterior windows at your new floor. You stop registering whether it's day or night. This is functional, not symbolic. You tell yourself this often. Invisible rule. The architecture must survive the architect. If your name can be traced to the structure has already failed. Level 7. Controlled exposure. You are asked to attend a regulatory inquiry as a supporting witness for an entity 2 layers removed from the principal. You say 11 words during 4 hours of testimony. Every word was pre-cleared. Afterward, you are told you performed correctly. You notice you feel pride at this. You note the feeling, examine it briefly, and move on. Your social life has compressed to 3 recurring contacts: a lawyer, a former colleague now at a competing firm, and a person whose function you understand, but whose title you've never confirmed. You exchange information rather than conversation. This feels efficient. The slight warmth of human interaction has become background noise, still present, no longer meaningful. Invisible rule. Testimony is architecture by another name. Every word is load-bearing. Level 8. The principal's logic. You now understand how he thinks, not through conversation, but through the pattern of decisions that reach your desk. He optimizes for permanence over growth. He treats regulatory friction as a timing variable, not a constraint. He has not made an emotional decision in anything you can observe. You begin applying this framework to your own choices. It works. You make fewer errors. You also make fewer calls to people you once called regularly. At this level, you review your own team's deviation reports. You find a loyalty signal in one associate's output, a small, unprompted disclosure flagged to a compliance channel. You remove them from the project within the hour. You do not explain why. This is the correct action. You know this completely. Invisible rule. Sentiment is a variable. Manage it like any other. Level 9. System function. You are the system now in every practical sense. The principal's decisions pass through you before execution. You do not advise. You translate intention into structure. You run 4 active exits simultaneously across different asset classes: a media holding unwinding through a series of secondary buyouts, a real estate portfolio migrating through a REIT conversion, a private equity stake dissolving via a synthetic transfer mechanism, and a citizenship by investment vehicle being quietly deregistered from a jurisdiction facing FATF gray listing. Each one is clean, each one is yours. You don't celebrate completions, you document them and begin the next sequence. The office temperature is always 68 degrees. You noticed this once, years ago. Now it's simply the air. Invisible rule. At this level, there are no rules. There are only consequences you choose to absorb or redirect. Level 10. The observer. A new associate is brought in at 3:47 a.m. You know this because the access log crosses your terminal. The entry code expires in 11 minutes. You watch the timestamp. You do not go down to meet them. Someone else runs that meeting now. Someone at level 3 who doesn't yet know what level 3 means. The associate will sign without reading. They always do. The signing is the interview. The badge will carry a 6-digit code. The room will smell like recycled air. And somewhere in the first week, they will do something small and irreversible, and they will feel nothing unusual, and that will be the moment it begins. You close the access log. You open the next file. The exit structures don't pause. The system was never about you. It just needed someone to run it.